A very warm welcome back, Nigeria. Thank you for staying with us here on the TVC Breakfast Show. Now, this case stunned the entire nation and we all watched. A London court's acquittal of a former petroleum minister, Diezani Alison-Madueke, has reignited conversations about corruption, justice and public accountability in Nigeria. While the UK jury cleared her of all 6 bribery and conspiracy charges, the ruling has sparked fresh debate over whether a legal victory also settles wider questions of public trust. The case is now raising broader concerns about the challenges of prosecuting cross-border corruption and the gap between legal outcomes and public perception. Even as the UK proceedings have ended, separate investigations and asset recovery efforts linked to Alison-Madueke in Nigeria continue to keep the accountability debate alive. Joining us via Zoom for this conversation is the Executive Director, African Network for Environment, Economic Justice, David Ugolor. Good morning, Mr. Ugolor. Thank you for joining us on the table this morning.
Thank you very much.
Yes, I like that when we're having discussions like this, we call you because you're our legal and justice guy, and I wanted you to know that. But on to more serious matters. Now, even though Diezani Alison-Madueke has been acquitted of all charges, there were several civil forfeitures, if you will. So this doesn't mean that she was entirely innocent. How are people who see the rulings of this case supposed to differentiate between criminal liability and civil forfeiture? And what does this case tell us about the state of high-profile criminal cases in Nigeria?
Thank you very much. I think, again, thanks for TVC for inviting me. Just to make a clarification, I am not a lawyer. I am just an anti-corruption and governance expert. And just to respond to your question, there are quite a number of high-profile cases in the country that has undergo some trial and so some trials, and then EFCC have secured victory for the country. I say for the country because ultimately it's the country that is the victim of all these huge crime that has denied the country resources would have been used for education, and other infrastructures across the country, and most especially the most recent ones, the former central bank governors, who have looted quite a number of resources from the country. We also have the former Attorney General Malame, whose asset has also been confiscated, and then there are quite a number of them like that, and including Diezani Madueke, who was also former petroleum minister. You see, one thing that is very unique in all this is these are high-profile, politically exposed leaders in the country, and they have abused their office. And what is unique about this asset forfeiture is that it is the burden for the anti-corruption agency like EFCC, ICPC, and others to carry out confiscation of assets, which is the ultimate benefit from crime that these politically exposed persons are committing in the country. If you were to undertake a criminal prosecution, like, for example, the prosecution that is ongoing now with Malami, you will see that it's pretty difficult because the burden of proof now lies on EFCC and the anti-corruption agency. But this non-conviction-based approach, the civil suit, which target the asset, which is ultimately what some of us anti-corruption fighter has been encouraging the Nigerian government to see how the unexplained wealth culture can be created in Nigeria. Now, we must commend EFCC and other anti-corruption agencies like ICPC, NDLA, and others who have now resort to using these tools vigorously in the country. You know, people like to label this as wish hunting and all that. Well, I don't see that as a problem because you need a political incentive to be able to fight corruption. If the incentive is political, well, the reality is that if you have a wealth, you are not able to explain it. There's not really politics about that. So the success story about the unexplained wealth culture that we are now promoting in the country, that EFCC and ICPC are providing leadership by making sure that leaders who cannot explain the source of their wealth the fact that they have this weight is by the virtue of the fact that they are in government position. They will be denied this asset. And this asset will now be converted to the benefit of the victim, which is the Nigerian population. And it can be used for the common good of the country. And this is really what will be the driver of fighting corruption in the country. And once we're able to translate fighting corruption to benefit of the victim, you will see the momentum, you will see the grassroots support. For instance, if you look at the amount of money that now we are now recovering from these politically exposed leaders that I've identified, you will see that it will go a long way to compensate for the pain they have taken Nigerian through. And so that brings me again now to their main focus, these four major NGOs across the world, Spotlight and on corruption, Corner House, EDA, and CISLAC and ANEG came together to issue out a public statement to clarify to the whole world that the victory that Diezani seems to have secured in Britain do not take away the fact of the assets that Nigerians have secured from her. And what that implies is that she has responsibility now to return back from Britain to come and defend if she really owned those material. I remember that some of these assets that was taken away from her, she need to come and tell Nigerians how she come about those material. Huge sum of money found around, and then all those assets found around with her. She need to tell Nigeria. And as a matter of fact, in the United States, asset worth in over 52 point something million dollars have been seized from Diezani, and after assets traced to her was confiscated, forfeited, and then put on sale, and total resources recover. As we speak today, $50 million of that amount of money is put in rural energy project in Nigeria, and 2 point something million dollars is put for justice criminal training.
That's right.
With a mortar-based organization. So I don't know. So Nigerians should never be deceived by the outcome. It's just a single criminal bribery case that happened. It has nothing to do with the entire corruption that Diezani have been accused of.
Absolutely.
And then Nigeria has actually led to confiscation of some of our assets in the country.
Most definitely. But then, some people are saying that if the UK, as it is, because everyone respects the West, they believe that they know how to do investigation, they know how to, carry out, justice and all of that. If they've done their homework very well, and regardless of public opinion, they said they're setting her free. They're saying that would it be that Nigerian, investigative, apparatus may be witch hunting her or maybe hounding her in order to, maybe, as you said, maybe political reasons or that. How do you think we should approach this? Is it should we should we see it as should the verdict be accepted that yes, the court has given that final legal word regardless of public opinion, or that she should, one way or the other, be extradited to Nigeria so that she can face, she can clear herself of these allegations? Because our supporters are saying she's got no axe to grind with the Nigerian, society or the Nigerian government, that she's innocent of all these allegations.
If you look through our statement that we have issued, we have tried to explain to Nigerians and explain to the whole world that people should be able to unpack what happened in England and what happened in Nigeria. And look, whatever that has happened in England can be admissible in the Nigerian court as part of our defense. But what we need to let Nigerians know is that there are two different kinds of prosecution. What has happened in England is a criminal prosecution. It has to do with bribery allegation. And what we have been saying in anti-corruption struggle is that to prove a criminal prosecution is a bit difficult. And the prosecutors in UK ran into inches. They couldn't get the cooperation that they anticipated, and that made that case to fail. So, but that has happened with Diezani in Nigeria, by forfeiting some of his assets, there are other innovative approach of fighting corruption, because people like Diezani, who are politically influential, for example, the prosecution of Malami is still ongoing. That's criminal prosecution. But while the criminal prosecution is going, now the anti-corruption agency are now using innovative tool because it's two-way fight. We have the criminal prosecution, we have the civil action that they use the non-conviction based tool and law, which is existing within the Proceed of Crime Act we have in the country. In England, they also have unexplained wealth order that they have in England. That so if anti-corruption agency go after your asset, the burden of proof, unlike in criminal prosecution, now shifts to you that who claim to be the owner, like the former central bank governor. He has his lawyers and defense has to prove that those property that EFCC confiscated, and that's why normally you see the approach. It will be first time temporary forfeiture. Within that temporary forfeiture, the owner of those assets, the so-called owner, has responsibility to prove before the court that this is how legitimately they have money to buy those assets, or those assets that they are being temporarily forfeited, they own it. But unfortunately, none of these characters have been able to prove it. And because they haven't been able to prove it in the law court, then the proceeding went further and EFCC secured a final forfeiture. And that has really helped because what is the incentive of abusing your office? Is this asset. This asset is what these political exposed leaders use to oppress the poor, to deny the poor a good quality of life. And so that is why we will continue to encourage EFCC, encourage ICPC, that they should exploit the non-conviction based approach, where burden of proof shift to those who claim the ownership. Because how can you imagine the former central bank governor? Look all the property that we are talking about. How did he come about it? Then look the former Attorney General. Look Diezani. If not by the virtue of the fact that they are serving in government position, I think the appeal that Nigerians is appealing to the current government is that while we are using this unexplained order, it should not be just for people who are not in APC. It should not be just for people who are not close to the president. The non-conviction based approach should be used across the board. Because at the end of the day, we are going to assess EFCC. We are going to assess because it creates a public perception. If the public begin to see EFCC that they are using this tool for only people who are not close to the president, for only people that are not in APC, for example, Malami is not in APC. He disagrees with the president. And then when you see the former CBN governor, he's not in APC. He disagrees with the president. He was even contesting for the position. Then it becomes very difficult for people to trust the process. And that's the only issue that I think EFCC need to put in consideration. Otherwise, it will damage the legitimacy of this process. We need to appeal that perception is very fundamental to create legitimacy for government policy. And the basis of government to undertake any policy, you need the grassroots support. You need the people to support you. So unexplained wealth order is a new tool that governments around the world are now using to dispossess this criminal of their assets, particularly this huge, gigantic asset that could have been used to build our roads, that could have been used to build hospitals, that could have been used to build infrastructure. One single individual will have an asset of that $52 million. This is unacceptable. At least you should be able to explain that I have social industry, I have social business. And then there can be equation that because you have this business, like Elon Musk in the United States, if Elon Musk says he has to
Mr. Ugolor, you are making the point very clear that which seems to be that irrespective of what happened in UK, there are other cases in Nigeria which she has been charged for, and since she's not here, so we've not been able to conclude those trials, and those are cases of clear corruption. If you look at the case she's charged for in UK, she was charged for in UK, borders around, the issue of lavish lifestyle, spending £2 million in Arox, paid for by an oil contractor, from Nigeria, then refurbishing a property in London, and also in Buckinghamshire, to the tune of
Yes.
£4.8 million, again paid
Yes.
for by the oil magnate, the oil contractor from Nigeria.
Yes.
But her defense,
Yes.
she did put up a defense to say, look, she was not a decision maker, that she was just a rubber stamp. And she then explained that the whole problem happened due to the fact that NNPC was in financial services were in a disorganized state at that point in time. Those are the central planks of our defense. Since then, we have moved NNPC on to become a limited liability company. Now, my concern is this. Do you really think that the decision made, by the courts in UK, simply looking at our lifestyle without actually probing into sources, into the corrupt, in my own view, personal view, the relationship seems to be corrupt. You cannot be holding a particular office and then, be living that kind of lifestyle, millions being spent on you, and then you divorce that, from your relationship with that contractor. Now, have we taken any step to look at that judgment by the UK High Court to ensure that such improper relationship will constitute a crime in Nigeria? I know the asset forfeiture is there, and I know that she has to explain where she got all the money. I mean, we're looking at over $50 million worth of assets already seized from her through the court.
The one from the
thing
US.
is this: have we tried to look at that relationship? Whether have we criminalized it, that you cannot be benefiting from contractors when you're a minister or a public civil servant in a particular ministry, when those contractors were actually being engaged by the same ministry?
Yes. Look, there are clear rules that guide public office holder in terms of, because he tried to also put that before the UK court, the issue of our culture. And even in studying corruption, the issue of culture and corruption is a huge area of study in anti-corruption and all that. The main argument that we needed to put forward, and the impression that Diezani tried to put out there in the public after the outcome of the UK court, is that I thank God I have been vindicated. That's not true. He has not yet been vindicated. As a matter of fact, I'm trying to put on the table that Diezani hasn't been vindicated. What has happened is that Diezani is trying to use the UK court to whitewash the so-called image, which, like you rightly put clearly, she need to come back to Nigeria to come and tell Nigerians and go through the court process. The UK court was just handling just one little aspect, which you explained a while ago, and that is bribery, which the prosecutors could not provide sufficient, because for you to win a criminal case, you have to prove beyond all reasonable doubt. So Diezani sufficiently, with some cooperation, I don't want to, with some cooperation, to create some doubts, which the UK prosecutor wasn't able to prove. But if Diezani so sincerely believe that all these bribery are not true, it should come to the Nigerian court. Now, that's why I said that the issue of trust and perception is very important. So the EFCC, the ICPC, the Nigerian government under President Bola Tinubu do have responsibility to create that trust and legitimacy, so that politically exposed leaders like Diezani will not ordinarily send a signal that I'm being witch hunted, because this will damage our reputation in the eyes of the international community, particularly when we look cases that are only purely going towards people who are not in APC. Once you join APC, you are free. That is dangerous. It creates trust deficit for the government. It creates trust deficit for EFCC. But I know, and I think, Nigerians should support EFCC. Nigerians should support ICPC. Because irrespective of the government that is in power today Tinubu is in power, tomorrow he will not be in power. Exactly what has happened to Malami will happen to those who uses the current power of the government to shield themselves away from prosecution. When Diezani was with Jonathan, you couldn't have tried Diezani in Nigeria. So a time will come, those who think that the current government is protecting them, the law will not be there again to protect them. So what we should be looking at is first to prove that Diezani has a case to defend. The corruption, the prosecution that happened in UK is only looking into small aspect of proving a bribery criminal case. Unfortunately, the UK prosecutor did not get much cooperation if you look into the real detail of the outcome of the judgment.
Now,
And so it couldn't prove beyond all reasonable doubt. And so because it couldn't prove beyond all reasonable doubt, Diezani won that case.
now, Mr. Ugolor, earlier on you said you're not a lawyer. I have to say, sir, you sound like one. But let's try to forge a way forward because we're running out of time. Yes. Do you think that it would be? You've said right now that this UK acquittal does not automatically vindicate her. It only helps her whitewash her case should she come before a Nigerian criminal investigation or whatever the case might be. But what happens today if Diezani steps off a plane in Abuja? Does this make it legally or politically or even socially easier for her to integrate back into Nigerian society? On the other hand, on the other hand, I worry that we have a culture in Nigeria where we spend so much energy and resources chasing these, trying to prosecute corruption cases, whereas we should be strengthening our procurement systems. We should be pushing for transparency and accountability to prevent corruption before it ever reaches this scale. We have too many examples. Emefiele, Malami, Diezani, Alison. There are too many cases that show us that our procurement systems and transparency systems, accountability systems at high levels are weak.
I completely agree with you that our procurement system and the integrity system need to be strengthened. And then apart from that, NFIU, the financial system, illicit financial flow, easily moving, our anti-money laundering laws and standard need to be complied with. Nigeria is coming again under mutual evaluation, whether our internal financial system complies with the Financial Action Task Force standards. And if you look into the country, for example, the implication is not just mentioning these few names. The kidnapping and banditry and conflict we're having in the country today has to do with the easy flow of resources across the country. And that brings me to bear again to commend the leadership of NFIU, the Nigerian Financial Intelligence Unit, for their work they are doing to strengthen the financial system in collaboration with EFCC. If you look at all the gold mining sites across the country, you find that illicit financial flow is connected to the banditry and the kidnapping crisis we're having in the country, coupled with the banditry of the politically exposed person, because the damage that the politically exposed persons is doing by stealing public money, by abusing their office, is worse than a kidnapping. It's damaging. Even in Edo State today, the governor have decided that whoever that is caught in kidnapping should be executed. And I hope those who also steal government money should also be executed. Because if those who kidnap and collect less than 10 million can be put on the wall and be executed, those who steal public money that would have been used to build hospital, those who steal public money that would have been used to build road, they should also be executed. The fact that they make the law does not make them an exception. You see, these are the things that create an exception. So if a governor who claims about 1 billion every month for security vote, and we cannot see what the money is used for, what happens to him? What happens to the banditry? What happens to the kidnapper? Should also happen to such governor. Should also happen to such minister. That is the only way we can bring sanity in this country. But if those who make law choose to make a convenient law, then we are in trouble. Look what goes on in National Assembly. Look at much of resources that is going out to public officials. And Nigeria going back borrowing. These are not creating impression in the eyes of the people. And that is why it's not about just Diezani alone. It's not about Malami alone. It's not about Emefiele alone. This is a huge problem in the country. That our
Absolutely.
political elite have lost their morality. They have lost their heart. Because why do you need to steal billions? What do you want to do with it? Even your children that you steal these billions for, they will not live a good life. They are naturally cursed. Have you seen any man who took billions from government?
Thank you so much, Mr. Ugolor. That's all we have time today. For today, Abraham Lincoln once said, you can fool some people all of the time and all people some of the time, but you can't fool all people all of the time. Thank you, Mr. Ugolor. Mr. Ugolor is the Executive Director of the African Network for Environment and Economic Justice, and we thank you for your insights this morning. Have a great day ahead.